Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Jean Umberto. In this video we are going to look at strings as object, and this is going to be of course a quick overview, and we'll focus more on the practical aspect of this topic. As you've learned in the previous videos, understanding object is a very rewarding skill for any programmers. So now we're going to explore how strings are objects in JavaScript, the methods that come with the string object, and we're also going to look at one string property. So here are the things that you will need to remember: that a string is a sequence of characters, and that when using an object method we need to know what it returns, and if it takes one argument, more argument, or no argument at all. So here's one more thing I want to say before we continue. In JavaScript, a string can be treated as an array-like object, and for that reason we can access each character, of course, in the string using its position or index. So if, for example, we have a variable called firstName, and that firstName has a value, we can simply access whatever character is at index 4 by simply saying firstName, which is the name of the variable, and square brackets, then you put 4, which is the index, and you'll get back the character at that particular index. So which is a kind of a powerful thing. Well, there are arguments as to how safe this is, but of course this is feasible in JavaScript. So we are going to be looking at the length property of the string, which works exactly like the array property, length, but what it returns is basically the number or the size of the characters in the string. Now we're also going to explore the following methods. We look at the char@at method, we look at the index of method, we look at the char_code@at method, we look at the replace method, split, substr, which is substring, and we look at to lowercase and to uppercase, we look at trim, and we're going to end the discussion looking at the start with and the end with method. And as usual, I'm going to point you back to the developer resource at Mozilla so you can read more about strings in JavaScript. Let us go and start practicing. Okay, so here I am on my laptop, and I have Windows 10 installed on this computer, but it really doesn't matter whether you are on 10, 8, or Windows 7. So what I'm going to do is launch my NetBeans IDE, and I'm just going to launch it using the start menu. So I'll click on the start button, and I'll go straight to the NetBeans IDE. You can see it right here. So I could open it from there, or I could simply go ahead and open it up from here, from the desktop. It really doesn't matter where you open it from. Okay, so here I am back in NetBeans, and as you have observed, we have been working in a project called JS Arrays, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and create a new JavaScript file. And I will select the site root, right click it, and go to new JavaScript file. So I'm going to go ahead and name this strings as object. I'll go ahead and save. Okay, so now that file has been created, and I will get rid of all the generated comment, and as usual save the changes. Okay, so what I want to do is create a variable. I'm going to define a variable. I'm just going to call it text, or you can call it anything you want. I'll just call it text. And once we have the variable defined and assigned a value, we are going to be using the notes that I have made here. So here I listed all the methods that we are going to explore in this discussion, and I put in some explanations that we'll be using as we write our code. So you could stop the video anytime and write the method name plus the explanation that is related to that particular method. Okay, so let us go ahead and define our string. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is create a variable which I'll simply call text. And to this variable, I'm going to assign a value, and I'll simply say my name is James, and I'll put in a comma, and I'll say James Bond. Alright, so that is our variable, and now we're going to start using the methods of the string object to see how we can work with this value here, or how we can manipulate this object text. Okay, so we are going to start with the first method, which is charAt, or you can say charAt, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Most people have heard simply say charAt, which means character at. So this method will expect one integer argument, okay, and it's going to return what we get back is basically the character at the given index, that is the value of that argument. So let us see how that works. So what I'm going to simply say is I'll say console.log, and I'm just going to say text, and remember this is how we access the object methods or its properties. So we simply say text, and that is our dot notation, and we'll simply say charAt, and that is basically the method we are interested in, and I'll simply say 0. So like the explanation says it, this is going to look at the index, that is the integer value that we've passed in that method, and then it's going to give us the character which is at particular position, and in this case we want the character at position or index 0, and therefore we can expect to get m back. So I will right click, run this file, and you can see that down here we have the value m. Okay, so this is what the charAt does for us. You give it an index and it returns the character value at that particular index. So let us go ahead and change this and simply say 10. Run that file again, and now you see nothing because at position 10 we basically have a white space. So if you start counting from here, you have 0, okay, then you have 1, and then at the second position you have the empty space, and then you have 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you have 7, and then 8, 9, and then at position 10 we have this white space, this blank, and that is why when you run this file you see absolutely nothing because we have the white space there. But if you change and you say 11, for example, you run this file again, and now you see J, and you can see J comes right after that white space. Okay, so that's what the charAt method does for you. So I'll go ahead and simply copy this to save time, and I'm going to comment that second line, save the changes. Now I'm going to change here, instead of saying charAt, I want to use the second method, which is going to be index of. Okay, now the index of method expect at least one string argument, okay, and that will be a character or a number of characters. That will be a string value, and what you get back is basically the index value where that particular argument is found in the text or in the string itself. So for example, if we say here we want to get so I'll go ahead and remove that argument, and I'll simply say index of. So I'll simply change the name of the method, and here I just want to say I'm looking at James, so I'm searching for the value James in this particular value or string value. So now if I run this code like the explanation said, we are going to get back the integer, that is the position where this particular value has been found in our string. So I will run this file again, and I can see that this is at position 11. Okay, so it's basically goes and find the first character, the position of the first character, and which is of course at 11. Remember in the previous explanation we simply say that at position 10 we had nothing, and at position 11 we had J, so James was found at that particular position or index 11. So you can see the difference between the first one is that we passed in an integer value, and it gave us back a string value, and now we passed in a string value and we get back the integer value. Okay, so I'll go ahead and comment this, but before I leave this method, it's very important for you to note that you can actually add a second parameter here and simply say I want to start searching from, for example, position 5, which is very important if you are in an iteration, and we'll see that I think in one of the subsequent videos, and I'll make a point I don't forget this, and if I do, please especially student, remind me so that I can actually make a video on how this can be useful. So what we're trying to say here is basically that we are looking at the value gems starting from a certain index. Okay, and this is the explanation that I think I must have put here, and that says you can also specify from which index to start a search, okay, which is an optional second argument. Okay, so that's all about the index of method. So I'll go ahead and comment this again. So I'll paste in that first line again, and I'm just gonna go ahead and remove that method so we can look at the next method. So the next method is char code at, and what you get back is, like the method says it, the code, and that is actually the Unicode value. That is the Unicode code point that represents that character. So it turns out that every character has its associated number, which is an integer value ranging from 0 to 65,535. So each character on your keyboard, everything you type, has its own Unicode representation, and that will be, of course, a number. So now we are going to give this method one argument that will be an integer that represents the index where we are looking at, and then we're going to get back the Unicode value of that particular argument. So let us go ahead and see how that works. So here we're just going to say char code at, and here we're just going to say 11, and remember that at position or index 11 we had the value j. So we want to see what is the number, what is the Unicode value that is associated or that is linked with the letter j. So I'll run this file again, and now you can see that 74 is the representation, that is a Unicode representation of 11. That is, of course, in the UTF specification. Alright, so if we go back here and change and say 0, okay, so now you can see we have 77, and you can go ahead and keep changing and say, for example, 5, you have 109. But what if we try that 10? Remember at position 10 we had nothing, we had white space, we had a white space. So I'll run that again, and you can see that a white space is basically represented with 32. So even when there is nothing, there is a representation for it in UTF or in Unicode. You can actually Google and read more on the Mozilla developer documentation about Unicode. Okay, so I'm just gonna comment that again, and I'll move on to the next method. I will go ahead and remove everything that is there, and now we're gonna look at replace. So just like the word suggests, to replace is basically to tell your program what you are looking for in the string and replace it with a new value. So you'll have to pass in at least 2 arguments to this particular method, and the first one will be the string that you're looking for, and the second is the next string that you want to use instead of that particular first string value. Or you can actually use a pattern, or and because it's a pattern, and it is also, of course, feasible to use a regular expression here as the search value. But again, we are not talking about regular expression in this particular discussion. Okay, so I will go straight back, and here I simply want to say replace, and what I want to do is I'm going to look for a value bond, and I'm going to replace it with a value Patrick. So what this method is going to do is look for the first occurrence of this particular value, that will be Bond here, and replace it with Patrick. So now we are creating a new string with a brand new value. So we can go ahead and run that, and now you can see it says my name is James, and now it says James Patrick. That Bond has been replaced. Okay, so let's move on. Then the next method we're going to explore is the split method. And what split does is basically split or divide your string into smaller pieces. So it actually returns an array back to you, and that array is going to be created using the separator, and the separator is your expected argument. So you have to tell it you want to split using what, and that will be the separator. So let's see how that works. So here we're going to say that we want to have a new, I will simply say A1 to say this is going to be an array, and this array is going to get its value from the text that we have here, that's our variable, and we're going to split it. Okay, so we simply say split, and our separator is going to be a comma. So now what you can expect, because you only have one comma, we are going to have an array of just 2 elements, and that will be my name is James, and the second will be James Bond. So let us go ahead and console.log. We want to log A1 to see what we have inside A1. I'm going to go ahead and run that. Now you can see that we have an array of 2 elements. My name is, and then we have, okay, that's a separation. Then we have James Bond. So this is an array of 2 string elements. So I can go ahead and change the separator and simply say I'm going to use the white space, which is the blanks, okay, the separation between each word here, and I'm going to run this again. Now you can see that we have an array of more items. So my is 1 item, and that's of course at position 0, and then you have name 1, and then you have is 2, and you can continue counting the array there. So that is what the split method does. It's actually create an array from a given string. So I will go ahead and comment everything here again so we can continue the discussion. So the next item or method we're going to look at is the substr or substring method. And what this method is going to do is basically give us a new string, which is of course going to be from a certain index, and then counting how many characters you want from that particular index. So you'll have to give it 2 integer arguments. So let us go ahead and do just that. So I'm going to go ahead here again, and I'm going to create a new variable, and I'm going to call it v1 for value 1 or variable 1, and I'll simply say it's going to get its value from text dot. Now I'm going to say substr. I'm going to use substring, that is a substring method, and of course using NetBeans you have this auto completion, which is handy for saving time. So you have text.substring, and now I'm going to say start at 0 and give me 6 characters. So from position 0 give me 6 characters. So now if we console.log and we log the v1 object which we just created there, that's of course the variable, and then when we run this file again, you can see that we have my and then name, and it doesn't have the e, okay, because it's actually started from 0 and then it ended right here at position 6. So what if I change here and say 7, run there again, and you can see that it says my name. And what if I want to start from position 5 and I want to get 10 characters from that position? So I run that. Now you can see me is James, right? Me is James. Okay, so that's what you get from using the substring, a very important method when you are doing some searches and you want to filter from your search result. For example, you might have a list of 100 cell phone numbers and you want to see which numbers belong to a particular network. For example, which numbers belong to Cell C or Vodacom or I don't know, ATA or MTN. So you could use the substring method to actually say you want to look at each number, and of course you will iterate over the object, that will be an array of numbers, where you'll say you want to get from 0 and you want to get 3 characters, okay, from those values. And when you run the file, of course, you'd get, for example, 074 or 082 or 071 and so on and so forth. Then you can actually get your statistics and use it. Okay, so that's basically one of the things that we are going to do when we start writing graphical user interfaces in HTML and creating arrays, and you can watch out for those videos in the near future. Okay, so I'll go ahead and comment that out. So we are almost done with our list. We are going to look at lowercase and uppercase, and what these do is basically what they suggest. This method will turn the string into lower or uppercase values. So let us go ahead and do just that. Okay, so here I want to simply console.log. I'll log the text object that we have, and I'll simply say to lowercase. And now if I run this file, you can see that everything is now in lowercase. So for example, you have M here, which was an uppercase value, but now in the output it becomes a lowercase value. And you have J, J, and B, which were all uppercases, but now turned into lowercase. This is very important, especially if you want to filter, or if you want to make some string comparison from different files or different values from the database. You can cast everything down to lower cases so that you can examine with a higher degree of correctness. And the system method here is simply to uppercase. So we'll simply say to uppercase. Alright, so if I right click, run this file, now you can see that everything has turned into uppercase values. Now this is usable, for example, in an application that you develop, and maybe the users do not know that you need uppercase values, so you don't need to force them. You can let them type whatever they want to type, but before you collect that value from the users, that is of course in the system logic, you can cast everything to uppercase. For example, the names of people and certain things that you want to represent in uppercase in your application, you can always do that, collecting that value before you save it to your database or to your file system. Okay, so we're going to look at trim, and we're not going to write any code for trim, but what you have to know is basically that trim removes all the white spaces from the left and the right side of the string. So if, for example, here you had some white space and you don't want that in your program, you can actually trim the value before you save it, which is going to remove all the white spaces. Okay, so the last group of methods will be the start with and the end with. And as their name suggests, you basically have to give it one argument. So what you get back is a Boolean value, which will be true or false, depending on whether your value, that is the string, starts with whatever argument you passed or it ends with it. So let us see how that works. If down here we simply say that we want to, I'm going to reuse the same line here, and I'm simply going to say text dot start with, and I want to see if this value here, okay, our string start with my, and of course you can expect to have true. Okay, that is the value true, because indeed our string starts with my, which is my. So what if I want to ask if the string starts with ms? Run this file again. Now you get false because the string does not start with that. And what about one single character? Yes, it starts with m. So what if I change this method, and I will simply copy the same method here, and I'll go ahead and comment this line, and here instead of saying start with, I'll simply try to test if it ends with, and I'll say does it end with m? Run this file, you get false. But does it end with bond? Yes, true. And does it end with D? Yes, true. So these are the methods that I think are important for you as a JavaScript programmer. but of course the idea is always to go to the Mozilla developer and read. There is a bunch of methods that I have not listed here which could be very important in your program, so always read the documentation. The last thing that we're going to talk about is the length property. Just like for arrays, the length property of the string object returns an integer which represents the size of the string value itself. And this is handy because if you think about in the messaging applications, for example, you are on WhatsApp and you're sending a message. Some messages are pretty long, some are short, and if you're a programmer and you want to start manipulating or working on those values from the user, that is the text from the users, it's very important to know how many characters you are looking at and how to actually want to process it. So again, as a programmer, you will not always know how many characters you have beforehand until you look at the length of the character. So let us go ahead and see how this works. And so what I want to do is basically write the console.log statement and look at the length of this particular value, string value. And of course now we have 29, so we have 29 characters from here up to there, and that's of course includes the white spaces. Okay, so this is very important because you will not always know how many characters you have, or that is the size of your strings, until you check the length. And for many purposes it is very important to understand how this works. Thank you very much. I hope you will continue practicing, and I will see you in the next video.